Hello! This is the first episode of Poetry to Ponder with author A. LaFay. If you'd like to know more about me and my work, you can find details at my website, A. LaFay, which can be reached at alafay.com. For instance, you might learn that the A stands for Alexandria and that I have a pretty big family. Now on to the poetry. Let's look at Spanish by Gary Soto. Before we do, I want to invite you to think about the details. What are things you notice in this story about a young girl who speaks Spanish? Yes, I did say story, because hidden within a poem is often a story. Let's listen. But as we do, what details do you notice? Spanish is a matter of rolling R's, clicking the tongue, and placing your hands on your hips when your little brother pours cereal into your fishbowl. Spanish is a matter of yelling, "Abuela, telefono un vendedor de TV Guide." It's a matter of Saturdays, too. You enter the confessional and whisper to the priest, first the sins you did in English, like screaming at the boy in the blue bike, and then muttering your sins in Spanish, like when you put on lipstick and had bad thoughts about Mercedes Lopez, that show-off in new jeans. Spanish is a matter of "Ay Dios!" when the beans burn, or "Chihuahua!" when the weakest kid hits a home run. Spanish is a matter of your abuelo and his compa, chuckling about their younger days while playing checkers under the grape arbor, their faces lined and dark as the earth at their feet. Spanish words march across a bag of chicharrones, those salted clubs that could easily hammer a nail through the wall, they're so hard. You've always known Spanish, even behind the bars of your crib, when you babbled mami, papi, flor, cocos, nonsense in the middle of the night. At school, your friends have to learn Spanish, tripping over gato y perro, easy words you learned when you looked out the back window. You're good at Spanish, and even better at math. And when you walk home dragging a stick through the rain puddles, Spanish is seeing double. The world is twice the size, and with each year, with one more candle on a crooked cake, getting bigger. Often when we read poems out loud, we learn more about how they're supposed to sound. We move those sounds around on our tongues, and we discover there's a lot of life hidden inside those poems. And a big part of what brings us to the next line in poetry are the details. The details that bring the story of the poem alive. Now, one of the reasons we read poems is to learn how to write poems ourselves. That's right. You could all learn to write a poem. I'm positive you can. Poems can be really simple. They can also tell a full story. So, let's look at the power of poetry in the details. Part of what makes details in poetry powerful is how specific they are. We'll look at this in a moment in the poem. The other thing is there needs to be something familiar about those details. Because if they're familiar, then we think, I know the feeling. I know what that's like. On the other hand, we want to be surprised. And one of the best ways to be surprised is when those details are unique. So, when creating details in our own poems, we want to be specific, familiar, unique, and surprising. Now, let's take a look at how we can make that happen by seeing how Soto does it in his poem. I like to use the example at the beginning, in the exchange between the sister and the brother. Notice what we learn about these two people and the way they live their life. For instance, she is clicking her tongue and placing her hands on her hips because her little brother, a specific detail, pours cereal into her fishbowl. Now, we learn that little brother's mischievous and that sister owns a fish. Look at all the things we learned in just a few words. We learn these things because they're specific. We see where her hands are, and just by seeing her hands on her hips, we know that she probably has a very stern and annoyed look on her face. We know a lot about little brother because he would pour cereal into the fishbowl. Now he could be so little that he did it because he was trying to feed the fish. Or he could have done it because he's kind of naughty. We don't know. Because one of the other things about details is they don't have to paint the whole picture, just part of the picture. It's also quite cool because it's unique. When we find out that the little brother pours the cereal, at least most of us aren't expecting it to go into the fishbowl until that next line. So these details are specific, placing hands on hips, familiar. Most of us who have siblings or even cousins or friends know what it's like when there's a little bit of conflict. But it's also unique because this little brother poured his cereal in the fishbowl, which was also surprising. Now it's your turn. I'd like you to look at the rest of the poem and see if you can find details. And when you find new details, ask yourself, are they specific? Are they familiar? Are they unique? Do they surprise you? And then it will be your turn to write a poem of your own using these kinds of details. Best of luck! Buena suerte! Adios! Goodbye! And I hope to see you again for another Poetry to Ponder with author A. LaFay. Thank you.